Welcome back, Defenders. Or should I say, welcome back to the Russian oil refinery destruction show. I'm your host, Jake Bro. It's the same headlines in every video now, but this is the winning strategy. Ukraine strikes at heart of Russia's oil exports, refineries in Urals hub ablaze. Ukrainian drones struck two major Russian refineries and a Urals oil hub, causing fires. The facilities supply fuel and lubricants to the Russian military. Ukraine strikes oil refineries in Russia's Saratov and Samara oblasts, confirmed by the military. This is where these two refineries are located on the map. Ukraine successfully struck them 2 nights ago. These are the pictures and videos we have. This is from the adjacent town, somebody out their apartment window taking pictures and videos from a distance. But that is a distillation tower currently on fire. Hundreds of feet tall, the entire thing engulfed in flames. I'll link these threads down below if you want to see the pictures and videos for yourself. This is the other Russian refinery. Once again, pictures and videos from a safe distance showing that the refinery was successfully struck. In addition, Ukraine has also been going after more pumping stations. Oil pumping stations in Volgograd and Samara stopped working after Ukrainian drone attacks. Here's the updated map. This is my war map now. This shows which Russian oil refineries have been struck and on what days. So if we get the update for today, this is the Samara Oblast refinery. This is the Saratov. And you'll notice the Saratov has been struck 6 times, 5 times so far this year. Once in January, once in February, once in August, and now twice in September. So there is something specific about this refinery. Whether it does provide fuel and lubricants to the Russian military, Ukraine definitely wants to knock this refinery offline. This is also, once again, the Samara Oblast, 900 kilometers from the border. It produces 7.9 million tons of petrol products per year. It was struck in March, then in August, again now in September. Here's some analysis from Tataragami. He's a former Ukrainian officer. Considering that Ukraine has targeted these refineries multiple times, Russia has failed to organize air defenses to stop repeated strikes. A key difference between the 2025 and 2024 drone campaigns is the ability to carry out repeated attacks frequently. Ukraine's continuous drone strikes are worsening Russia's fuel crisis. Earlier, according to Reuters, they reported that Transneft, responsible for most of Russia's oil transport, warned producers they may have to cut output following Ukraine's attacks on their oil sector. Oil and gas revenue has made up between 1/3 and half of Russia's federal budget over the past decade, making the sector the single most important source of funding for this war. Last but not least, it directly hits ordinary Russians by driving up prices and causing shortages. This is going to have a huge impact. Don't mention the drones. Russian media admits empty gas station pumps nationwide, rocketing fuel prices. It's okay in Russia to admit motorists might have trouble filling up their cars, but it's not okay to talk about all the oil refineries in Russia being blown up by Ukrainian drones. Ukraine is not supposed to have this capability. That is what Russian propaganda is saying. Therefore, it's not happening. It's okay for ordinary Russians on Telegram to share stories and pictures of gas stations without gasoline, or they can complain about record-high fuel costs. But they're not allowed to talk about oil refineries being blown up. This is kind of a compilation video over the last couple weeks of all these concerned Russians driving past their local gasoline stations, and either the board is blank or the board is showing record prices. Russians have never experienced gasoline prices this high. That immediately has them freaked out, but when they try to go to a gas station and they can't get fuel for their car, they don't understand why. The government is keeping this a secret from them, that all their oil refineries are currently being blown up. This is according to Ukrainian intel. Russia's economy transforms into military dependency while oil revenues drop 17%. Russia has trapped itself in a military rent scenario where continuing the war becomes financially impossible, yet stopping it would trigger mass unemployment and economic restructuring. There is an argument to be made that Putin doesn't want to stop the war right now because bad things would happen. If hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers in the occupied territories returned to Russia because there was a ceasefire or a peace deal, Putin would stop paying them. Their wives and children would stop getting these support checks from the military. The sign-up bonuses would end, the death bonuses would end, and this would trigger a massive recession, an economic catastrophe for the Russian economy. But obviously this war is unsustainable. Russia is depleting the wealth fund of their nation. They're depleting all of their economic reserves to keep this war going, in effect generating stimulus. Stimulus entirely benefiting military production, which doesn't really help the civilian economy. Where the money currently is going now in Russia is not long-term providing any economic benefit. They're not building roads and bridges. They're not building schools and hospitals or airports. They're building tanks and jets that just get blown up in Ukraine. Not much of an economic benefit long-term. Ukraine is also continuing their successful strategy of going after juicy targets in Crimea. 3 Russian Mi-8 helicopters and a radar station destroyed. This was near Simferopol. This is where this base was located on the map. And Ukrainian intelligence released the video. I can link this down below. They always put copyrighted music on the video, so I can't play it. But this is the drone FPV video showing the destruction of 3 helicopters, as well as a Nibu-U radar system. The radar costs $100 million. And each of the Mi-8 helicopters cost about $8 or $10 million. Russia can't make this stop. Ukraine, I think, is using drone boats to get FPV drones close to the Crimean coastline. They then take off in the middle of the night and find something valuable to blow up. Russia cannot prevent this. They cannot make this stop. So what's Russia's strategy? And they continue their air campaign of terror, targeting civilians. Last night, Russia launched 619 drones and missiles. Here is the flight path showing all the drones and missiles. This time, Russia chose to not fly 20 drones into Polish airspace. Very generous of them. Russia fires 619 missiles and drones at Ukrainian cities, killing civilians. A Russian cluster munition directly struck a multi-story residential building in Dnipro during a massive barrage. 1 person dead, 26 injured. These videos are online. Obviously, I can't show them. I can't show violence. I'll link these down below because, yes, when Russia bombs an apartment building in broad daylight, the people who live there are going to take out their smartphones and start taking pictures and videos. This is horrific. This is intentional. Just terrorism, guys. That's all it is. Here's President Zelensky. All night, Ukraine was under a massive attack by Russia. The enemy launched 40 missiles, cruise and ballistic, and about 580 drones of various types. I thank all our warriors who defend the skies throughout the night and our F-16 pilots, who once again proved their prowess today and effectively countered the cruise missile threat against Ukraine. Every such strike is not a military necessity, but a deliberate strategy by Russia to terrorize civilians and destroy our infrastructure. That is why a strong international response is needed. Ukraine has proven it can defend itself and Europe. But for a reliable shield, we must act together. Strengthen air defense, increase weapon supplies, and expand sanctions against Russia's military machine and the sectors that finance it. Every restriction on Russia saves Ukrainian lives. I thank everyone who helps and supports us. Here's the good news. Ukraine to outmatch Russia's drone attacks with 1,000 interceptors a day. This is according to Shimahal. He claims that Ukraine's ability to intercept drones will soon surpass the intensity of Russia's nightly drone use. This is what I've been saying on this channel for weeks, that Ukraine has had a technological breakthrough, and these new interceptor drones will render Russia's long-range Shahed drones obsolete. This is what the technology is achieving. Last night, during this massive attack, the Wild Hornets is claiming their interceptor drones successfully shot down 20 Shaheds. 20 out of 500. This number is going to increase. Once this technology improves and more of them can be produced, you need crews trained on them, you need to have them deployed in advance of where these flight paths might be. But this is eventually going to probably increase to half of the Shaheds being shot down. There's still the Gepard anti-air defense guns. Ukraine is still deploying MiGs and F-16s to shoot them down while they're in the sky. But I think these interceptor drones are the real solution here. This is the Wild Hornets page. They're a drone shop for Ukraine, leading the innovation of this technology. And they put out a frequently asked questions. Let's go through it. The first one, how effective are drones that shoot down Shaheds? And they're saying that their Sting interceptors achieve between 60 and 90% effectiveness depending on crew experience and the radar setup. How many interceptors are needed to take down a single Shahed? In 8 out of 10 incidents, only a single one of these interceptor drones can successfully lock on and bring down a Russian Shahed. So that's a 80% success rate on the low end. That is very good, guys. Are interceptors fast enough to catch a Shahed? Yes, the Sting is substantially faster than a Shahed or a Herbert-type drone. Neutralization can typically take place in 10 to 15 seconds after being launched. People say interceptors are expensive. Is that true? The per unit cost is currently about $2,000 per Stinger, but that is less than 1/10 of the cost that Russia is paying to produce these goofy long-range Shaheds. Ukraine just countered it. After Russia spent a fortune building all these factories and hiring all these people that are now producing an obsolete piece of technology. Can Ukraine produce 1,000 interceptors per day? And what's needed to do that? Yes, these are 3D printed, and I'm guessing the electronics components are being shipped in somewhere from Europe. But yes, if the funding is there, Ukraine can produce easily 1,000 of these a day. This is not just about the Shaheds. This is going after the surveillance drones on the front lines. If Ukraine has a radar lock and they can figure out the flight paths, yes, they're going to shoot these surveillance drones down with these interceptors, and this is going to blind Russian forces on the front lines. They won't be able to safely surveil artillery strikes and troop movements going forward. For fun, I'm going to try and share this video. If the YouTube censors are watching, nobody was injured, nobody was harmed. This is a Russian Shahed drone flying over the city of Dnipro, and Ukraine used an anti-air missile, I assume, to shoot it down. But this is over a major city of more than 1 million people in broad daylight. Air defense going off to shoot down a Russian threat. Wow. You can hear the children cheering as debris is now falling on the city. But falling debris is better than if this Shahed had slammed into another apartment building. The other top story from the last 2 days, Russian warplanes violated NATO member Estonia's airspace. 3 Russian MiG-31 fighter jets entered Estonian airspace on Friday amid heightened tensions with NATO. These Russian MiGs also flew over a Polish sea drilling platform, but let's focus on Estonia. And what's happening here is every time Russian warplanes want to go to Kaliningrad, they have to go out through the Baltic Sea. There's a very narrow corridor between Estonia and Finland, which is international water, international airspace. So these Russian jets, if they want to go back and forth between Kaliningrad, they have to go through this very narrow corridor. Otherwise, they're violating the airspace of Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, or Poland. And I'm sure Russia doesn't like doing this. I'm sure this is part of the reason why Russia wants to invade the Baltics, so they don't have to worry about violating other people's airspace. 3 Russian MiG-31 interceptors spent 12 minutes inside Estonian airspace with their transponders switched off, prompting Estonia to release flight path evidence after the Kremlin denied any border violation. This is a provocation. This is Russia once again testing NATO and just interfering with NATO because they think it's fun and to their benefit. So these jets easily could have stayed on the predetermined flight path for international flights to not violate Estonia's airspace. But they did this on purpose. For 12 minutes. They did this deliberately. What is NATO's reaction? Estonia asks NATO to activate Article 4 after Russian fighter jets violate their airspace. We're going to have a meeting. Just like when Russia launched 20 drones into Poland, we had a meeting, and nothing came of it. This is what President Zelensky has to say. Russian military aircraft once again violated NATO airspace, this time over Estonia. Outrageous. Russia's destabilizing activity is expanding into new countries and directions. They use every tool, from interference in political processes, as in Romania and Moldova, to violations of airspace, as in Poland, Romania, and now Estonia. These are not accidents. This is a systemic Russian campaign directed against Europe, against NATO, and against the West, and it requires a systemic response. Strong action must be taken, both collectively and individually by each nation. Russia must feel increasing pain from the world's pressure, first and foremost through its economy, and that is best ensured by sanctions. At the same time, Russia's war losses must continue to rise, which is best achieved by a strong Ukrainian army. I thank everyone who helps. People are remembering what Turkey did when Russia violated their airspace back in 2015. NATO avoids Turkey's 2015 response after Russian jets violate the skies over Poland and Estonia. People don't remember why Turkey shot down the Russian jet in 2015. It wasn't just one airspace violation. There were multiple violations in October of 2015, at least 5 of them, and Turkey specifically warned Russia that if it changed its rules of engagement and they would shoot down a Russian jet. This was back in 2015. Russian pilots were bombing people in Syria, and there's this geographic border with Turkey and Syria where the Russian pilots were just taking a shortcut. They didn't want to detour for 5 minutes to go around this bend from their airfield, so they would just repeatedly violate this part of Turkey. Turkey warned them 5 times, and then they just shot down the plane, and they killed the pilot. It did not lead to World War III. It led to the Russians respecting Turkey's airspace and never violating it again. There's a lesson to be learned there. I don't know if NATO's going to get it. Russia's drone incursion and this new MiG incursion, it's a test of Western resolve. This is according to General Keith Kellogg, Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, and we're failing the test. Putin feels free to increase attacks on Ukraine without fear of consequences from Trump. This is according to Bloomberg. Putin got the red carpet treatment in Alaska with Trump, and we got nothing. Absolutely no concessions, no agreements, no deals. Donald Trump is the worst negotiator in the history of human civilization. He just gets nothing from Putin every time he talks to him. And Putin keeps getting everything from Trump. Trump is cutting military aid to Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. This was revealed in the Pentagon's budget for next year. The U.S. Department of Defense informed European countries last week that military support under a program known as Section 333, will be cut to zero for the next fiscal year. The fiscal year starts in October. Why would the United States military cut all aid and support and pull our military out of the Baltics? Unless Trump is just doing whatever Vladimir Putin wants. This is the alarm that we've been raising on this channel for over 3 years, but everyone else in Europe, everyone else in NATO needs to understand. There is no NATO anymore. NATO is dead. If Russia attacks Finland or Russia attacks Estonia, Donald Trump and the United States military is not going to help. Would the French military help? Would the Spanish military help? Would the Italian military help if the Russians invaded the Baltics? There is no unified NATO. So I understand this. I'm not lecturing anybody in Europe. I know the people in Europe understand the situation way better than the people in America. But yes, Russia is not going to stop in Ukraine. They're trying to find a way to take Ukraine, absorb Belarus. They're going for Moldova the first weekend after they take Kyiv. And eventually they will go for the Baltics. They will contest Finland. They might even contest parts of Poland and Romania. This is about empire. And the Russians are not being shy about their objectives. I'm going to mention some US headlines just so my audience understands how bad things in America are getting. Donald Trump has now been president for 9 months, and the rule of law is gone. Every American living in America today is living in a lawless society. We have a dictator, and whatever that dictator wants, that's what has to happen. Doesn't matter what's in the Constitution, doesn't matter what laws Congress pass, doesn't matter how the courts interpret it. We have one man who has one voice, who has final say over everything. That is a dictatorship. And it's all about corruption now. MAGA, now that they're in power and they control all the federal agencies, it's a smash and grab. They're just trying to take as much for themselves as possible, and Trump will pardon everyone before leaving office. Trump border czar Tom Homan reportedly accepted $50,000 in cash from an undercover FBI agent. This is Trump's border czar, and last year he was caught on camera accepting a $50,000 cash bribe from undercover FBI agents to award government contracts to specific companies. This was a sting operation. He's on camera. And Donald Trump, as soon as he took office in January, killed the investigation and still gave him a job. The message being sent here is that bribery is okay. Corruption is okay. You can use your federal office, federal positions to enrich yourself as much as you can in any way you can. There is no rule of law. What is Donald Trump's Justice Department focusing on prosecuting? And this is weird, but on Truth Social, Donald Trump sent a message to Pam. This is Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. The Justice Department is supposed to be somewhat independent of the president. That's how it's been for centuries, so as not to make people concerned that the president would use the Justice Department to go after political opponents. But this is Trump saying in clear language, I want all of the people I hate arrested and put in jail. And it's Pam Bondi's job, the Attorney General, to do so. He's not talking about evidence or crimes or charges. He just hates Adam Schiff, who's a United States Senator, and he wants this United States Senator put in jail. Because he hates him. And once Adam Schiff is in jail, he'll go on to the next person, and the next person. We're not at the point of people being thrown out windows or poisoned with tea, but we will get there in a couple years if Donald Trump is allowed to succeed at this. Free speech is also disappearing in America. Pentagon demands journalists sign pledge not to publish certain info, otherwise they will lose their access. Reporters face new Pentagon rules requiring them to pledge not to publish sensitive info, giving the Defense Department sweeping control over their coverage. The free press is the fourth pillar of our democracy, And Donald Trump is doing everything he can right now to silence it. You can't tell journalists they can't run a story about the military without the military's approval, because then every journalist becomes de facto a military propagandist. That would mean a Pentagon reporter could never reveal a story the government didn't want exposed. The very point of a free press is to hold those in power accountable, and this would shut down that function entirely. So let's say the Pentagon is planning a secret invasion of Canada, Greenland, Cuba, Venezuela, or Panama, which they're doing. Yes, there are people in the Pentagon who want to leak this information to journalists, get this information out so there's public outcry to prevent a U.S. military invasion of Venezuela or Panama or Greenland. This is where America's going. I feel like I'm screaming into the void, guys. So if you are watching my videos and you happen to work in the Pentagon, you happen to be somebody with intelligence in the U.S. military, you can't leak information to the Washington Post or the New York Times anymore. You have to go to, I think, online influencers like myself. I'm not a journalist, guys. I'm a commentator. But the internet, at the moment in the United States, is still free. And I think this is the direction we're going to be going. People, when they want to leak information, they basically have to give it to anonymous, or they have to give it to non-Americans who can't be arrested and then sent to Guantanamo Bay for leaking the Pentagon's plan to invade Venezuela or whatever. These are hypotheticals for the future. This is how insane America is getting. MAGA just installed a gold statue of Donald Trump holding a Bitcoin on the National Mall in front of the Capitol building. These people are in a cult. They're literally worshiping a golden calf of Donald Trump. And these are supposed to be the Christians, like the real religious people in my country. I don't get it. I've never gotten it after 10 years. I never will get it. I think these people are insane. They're insane. One additional story I want to quick mention. Yet again, another Russian businessman was found dead in Moscow. This man's name is Alexander Tunin, and we have the video of his body being found on the side of the road. It's being ruled a suicide, but doesn't look like a suicide to me. This man was important because he was the top manager of a company involved in the production of Shahed drones. Umatex Group is Russia's only carbon fiber producer and a key supplier for Russian Shahed drones. I don't think Ukraine had anything to do with this, because if Ukraine did it, they might take credit for it, or Russia would blame Ukraine. But it's just being ruled a mysterious death yet again. So we get to go to my second favorite Wikipedia page of all time, suspicious Russia-related deaths since the full-scale invasion in 2022. These are all the Russian politicians and business leaders who have mysteriously died over the last 3.5 years. This list grows at least every week. This more likely is rival factions and Russia's government settling differences while the government is distracted. Or it's just Putin killing people he doesn't like so he can take their stuff. But here is Alexander Tunin. He was 50 years old, and he was found dead in Moscow. Good news, the EU unveils its 19th sanctions package on Russia. You can never sanction enough individuals and corporations, so thank you so much to my friends in the EU. Final video I want to share with you is from friend of the channel, Richard Woodruff. He's at some kind of gathering in Lviv, and the people at this party just start singing together. It's very touching.
Sila rodina
continue supporting Ukraine. Russia will be defeated. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.